Thank you, guys. Sorry about that. All right, so let's begin by going back over what we discovered on Thursday and then stepping further into it. I believe last Thursday we talked about some network topologies. And I introduced a few of them: ring, bus, and a star. And the way I introduced them to you was a logical layout, and that is basically how the message is passed from node to node in these networks. When we look at topologies, they're basically trying to explain how we handle contention, competing for limited resources, or a shared medium. Okay? The biggest hurdle with our network performance is more and more users are going on it. And that's because the internet's becoming more and more popular because you are making that happen with your own content. I mean, how often do we go on the internet for checking Facebook statuses or checking what somebody's posted or watching YouTube videos? I mean, it's hard for TV producers or writers to compete with the popularity of YouTube. We are watching each other on a global platform, and as a result, its popularity is sort of self-feeding. You contribute to this. Your contribution is what makes other people want to watch it. So we ask ourselves, well, what happens when this growth starts becoming epidemic? And they're saying every year the internet doubles in size. That's pretty remarkable. So we looked at ring, bus, and star, and the one that I spent a lot of time on last week was basically your local area network and how we use a star topology to explain how things go on. So I said this terminology, local area network, which is commonly short for a LAN. And we said a definition of a network is two or more devices connected together to share resources, right? Well, how do we connect these devices together using a star topology? So the first thing is they have a center, a shared center, if you will. Network equipment would call this a switch. And off of this switch, there are going to be nodes and devices. A switch is not considered a node. It's considered an intermediary device. Its purpose is to just act as a coordinator between all the traffic flowing across a local area network. Now, right now, the popularity isn't local area networks as much as it's wide area networks. Now, we do have more than one device. Some people have smartphones, tablets, laptops, PCs, or smart televisions. And the biggest thing that we try to share in our house isn't really local resources as much as it's our internet connection to our ISP. And the reason why we care about sharing that more than anything else is because that's a monthly cost, right? You're looking at 40, 50, 60, and beyond. So why should we have an internet connection for each of our devices? Well, we can simply have one device whose sole responsibility is to share their connection to the world with all these other devices. Now, this is going to be changing. I'd like to just give you a generic layout, and then you guys sort of fill in your blanks. I follow the Ethernet standard when I design my network. That is, I will buy an Ethernet switch. You can think of the Ethernet switch as being like a cable splitter. It's got many ports that you plug your end devices into, and by plugging them into it, they should be able to share resources. Now, I said they should be, but we need to follow some protocols. We're going to be following the Internet protocol version 4. And in a minute, I'm going to run you guys back through the troubleshooting steps on how to narrow down where you're experiencing some problems. What does IPv4 tell me? Well, one, all the computers on my network gets an address that looks something like this. A number followed by a dot, followed by another number, followed by a dot, then another number followed by a dot, then finally another number. Second, it tells me that no two computers on the same network can have the same IP address. Remember, IP is short for Internet Protocol. What we're trying to say is these computers are going to communicate with other computers on the Internet. They all must have the same addressing scheme. Now, what's the range that you can pick a number between each octet? Now, that's 1/4 of an IP address, right? We said that an IP address is 32 bits. 1/4 of a 32-bit address is 8, right? 8 bits. So we call that an octet. 2 raised to 8 gives me what? 256 different possibilities. That means each of these numbers can go from 0 to 255. Is that okay? And you can use them over and over as long as no two numbers on the same network have the same IP address. Okay? Here's the issue though. In order for these devices to communicate logically with each other, now that's the difference here is logically. We have a physical family. That is, the people that you and I have the same genetic material with, right? We call them brothers and sisters. But is that the extent of your family? The people that share the genetic material? When I went to college, I joined a fraternity, and we called each other brothers. I'm so glad some of those people in my fraternity did not have the same genetic makeup as myself. But we called each other brothers, and that would be the same as what these computers are going to call each other because they might not have the same electronic makeup. That is, they might not all be the same manufacturer, the same model. One might be a tablet, one might be a smartphone. But how do they communicate with each other logically? How do they accept that they are in the same family? How do they know that it's okay to pass or share this type of data within this network, but it's not okay to share it out there in that hallway? Like when you and I are talking to each other, we have our own type of conversation, our own rules, our own etiquette. I tell you guys to call me Nick. Now, your parents might believe that that's inappropriate. And when you introduce me to your parents, you might say, this is Instructor Andre, or Mr. Andre. So how do these computers know that what's okay here is not okay there? Well, like I said, it's a local area network. And how we define a local area network is by who administrates it, whether it's a single administration or single organization, its scope. So I like to bring it back to your home. They're your devices. Now, I'm a big advocate against having to buy multiple licenses. I think you should buy one license for Microsoft Office and you should be able to install it on any device that you own. I also believe that you should only buy one license for an antivirus and to be installed on everything and so on. Now, this might come to fruition if we were to add a server in between here and there. And so all the protection comes to this server before it comes to these local devices, right? So then you can install all your stuff in one location and then have access to it. But then this server needs to be able to determine, because it's right in the middle, if you will, just like this router, what's local and what's remote. That's where we look at the IP address. Like a name, it has two parts, a first and last. Now our wife, hopefully, unless you live in Kentucky, should have different genetic material. But when we get married, they take on our last name, correct? When we bring a new node into our switch, we make sure that they have at least the same network address. How do we know what is the network address and what is the host address? We have a thing called the subnet mask. I'll just abbreviate it as SM. And that's going to be 255.0.0.0 in this case. For all simplicity, because we're not getting into subnetting. If you see a number with 255 underneath it, that number in the IP address contributes to the network address. Is that okay? If I were to change the subnet mask so it's 255.255.0.0, I will also need to come over here and change this number 1, that's the second one, to be a number 2. This way they both share the same network address. You good about that? Now I tell you this because I don't want you guys to be network engineers or administrators, but I want you to be able to troubleshoot your own computers. Because this happens. Your router is going to have an IP address. In fact, your router is going to have 2 IP addresses. This interface right here, which we call the network interface part, is going to have an IP address that better belongs to this network. That is to say, it begins with 1.2 dot followed by some number that no other device has. Let's call it 0.1. Okay? It's also going to have another IP address. This is going to be a public IP address given by the ISP. This number becomes very frightening. It's this number on your public side of your router that no 2 devices on the internet can have. This other number's on the private side. This is like calling your son Nick and your neighbor calling their son Nick. If you guys are having a conversation, you need to discipline your kid for whatever reason. If you say Nick in your own house, the neighbor's kid's ear shouldn't be ringing. What did I do wrong now? It's within your own house. And that's fine. So we NAT this. We do an address translation, so any and all packets that leave this router are assigned this public IP address. Should this be a concern for you guys? Wait until Thursday's class and you'll find out how frightening it is. More importantly, what if you throw a wireless router onto your network and you live in downtown Corning? Now, I live in the country and I don't protect my wireless network because not very many of us in the neighborhood. Should I protect it? Probably. Should you protect it? Absolutely. Now, I always bring this up because I'm not sure where the laws are because they're changing a mile a minute. And hopefully we'll have this answer to you by Thursday. But let me ask you something. In New York, if you do not lock your liquor up, and little Billy brings his friend over, and they get shit-faced, and his friend starts stumbling down the street, going back to his house, and a cop pulls him over for, because you can get arrested for public indecency, correct? Who's accountable for that? Is that officially true in New York? Same thing with gun control. If you don't have a means to show that you did your due diligence of keeping the trigger locked or the gun in the gun cabinet or safe, that you become accountable for the crime? Is it an accomplice? So let me ask you something. What this? Can you guys commit cybercrimes? Could you give me an example of a cybercrime? Child pornography. Adam, you got something you want to tell the class? Ouch. I'm glad he said it and not me, because I think my students think I'm already goofy. So, now, alright, what other types of cybercrime? Nothing into that degree of harshness that maybe we're all guilty in some form or another. Give an example, a little bit more precise of an example of financial crimes. Okay. Could be absolutely identity theft. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. I wanted something that we can all say that our hands were dirty at one point or another, because I can attest that I did not commit identity theft or steal some other buddy's credit card. But maybe downloading music is a crime that maybe we can all just share. So, any case, here's the problem, though. How do we, that is law officials, track that activity? And how do we say that it's you that did it and not so-and-so? Yeah, it's this public IP address, correct? Because all that traffic has to go through your ISP. Remember, we take these messages and break them up to packets. Packet contains the payload. So these ISPs have these routers that literally sniff these packets. And they can determine what services you're using. But once again, how do they know it's you that did this and not somebody else? Is the get out of jail free card setting up a rogue wireless router on your network? And why do I say, would this be a get out of jail free card? Right, you have your hand up, you want to say something? No, once it gets to this point, your router is going to do what they call natting. And that it's going to translate all these devices, which are private IP addresses, to a public IP address. Let's look at a mailing address. You guys are in Corning and you want to go to Canada. You have a mailing address in Canada you want to go to, so you guys put it in your GPS. While you're driving, do you worry about the street address as much as the city, state, or country? You look at the first largest part and you narrow it down. Are you in Canada yet? No. Go north until it says welcome to Canada. Now you're in Canada, what's the next thing you're going to look at? The province, correct? Once you're in that province, what are you going to look out next? The city. Once you're in that city, what do you look for next? The street name. Once you're on the right street, what do you look for next? The house number, correct? Could we translate that into like one simple thing at a time? Canada. Are you validating anybody's personal security by saying I'm going to Canada? As far as this is concerned, that's that. That's that generic address that represents your house. In fact, it represents your account to your ISP. Okay? Now this number is probably dynamic, and your ISP has a database that associates that number and the time and the activity with it. We learned about databases. Databases offers a level of convenience, but also jeopardizes our security. So the question is, by setting up a wireless router onto our network, is that our get out of jail free card? Heck, if you want to commit a crime, is it better just to walk down the street and hijack somebody's wireless router and use their network to commit the crime? Absolutely, same thing. Okay, yeah, that's level of security, but that you know of. So you have to, hopefully your software is pretty good about this, but there's a way around that, as with anything. So what she's saying is that her smartphone, is that right? Through her, let's just call it ISP, even though it's a wireless carrier, has allowed her to use her mobile phone as a way of hooking up to other wireless devices to use her network connection. And when she goes to pair her laptop or any other device to her phone, she has to accept it. Is that right? So if somebody else detects this hotspot because she hasn't set a password up there, she believes that she should feel safe because she's got to approve or deny this. Okay? What if somebody comes around it and then starts using your phone to do attacks? We're talking about accountability here. Because folks, these wireless routers, as you well know, aren't directly connected by some means of tracking it with a physical line or a cable. They can go through walls. So if you have an apartment building that's right next door to somebody else, what's to stop your neighbor from grabbing your Wi-Fi signal and then downloading that song via your internet connection and doing a lot of it? So that when the Motion Pictures of America or the radio industry starts pounding on your door, they can charge you with copyright infringement. What? Are you responsible, held accountable? Is it not a fair question? After all, you didn't give the 5-year-old or the 10-year-old or the 15-year-old alcohol, but it was in your house. You didn't hand Billy the firearm, but it was in your house. You didn't tell your neighbor it's okay to use your wireless router, but the wireless router was in your house. So if I were to commit a crime, I would just start strolling down the neighborhood, finding first the wireless router that isn't locked down or protected. And then if it is, try to find the one that's using WEP so I can crack it. And then use your computer to commit the crime. And with these Chromebooks that are only like $200, I would buy it in cash and then throw it away after the crime is committed. By the way, this isn't a class to teach you how to commit a crime. Hey, I'm talking about retiring soon. So, who's held accountable? Should they start be pounding down people's doors? By the way, if you're really smart about it, remember, your computer is hooked up to this device. So when they start pounding on my door, don't they need evidence? So, yeah, I'll download that music. At the same time, I'll give you a copy of it. So your computer's connected to this. I'm over here downloading music, and then I'm going to send it to one of your devices on your network. Now it becomes really interesting. Because when they do knock on your door, you're like, I don't download illegal music. They're like, would you have a problem? We checked your computer. And they see all those songs that were being downloaded. What defense do you have? How hard is it to do something like this? So why are people going to court, paying huge fines for copyright infringement, when it seems like there is no beyond a reasonable doubt? Is there doubt? Have I introduced that to you guys today? Interesting. So why are we doing this? Why are we charging these people huge amounts of crime? Does it seem like far-fetched? Because they do take it to the next level. Going back to what Adam said about the child kiddie porn or whatever you want to call it, there was a teacher, Ohio, Oklahoma, one of those O states, if you will. A student was pissed off at him, a high school teacher, and set him up. He had a wireless router, got onto his network, loaded pornographic images on his computer, and then called the FBI, told them about his teacher, was arrested. During that whole Q&A session that they had during this whole thing, he said, I have no idea what you're talking about. They feel confident this instructor or teacher is being legitimate, so they set up a trap. They let the wireless router go, and they checked to see if anybody else was coming and going out of this wireless router, and they found out that it was his neighbor, one of his students. But to me, knowing this, what if they didn't catch him at that particular point? What if this person was roaming around, which we call road warriors, from hotspot to hotspot to hotspot? What about the legitimacy of cybercrime, and how do we prove it and enforce it? I think it's like gun control, right? It might even be underage alcohol, and how we make it your responsibility. And if it comes from your home, regardless of whether you commit the crime or not, you're held accountable up to a certain limit. Hence, we need to talk about how to lock these wireless routers down. We need to talk about getting these types of connections. Because in order to get into this type of connection, you have to be in somebody's house to do it. Correct? That means you need to have your doors locked, your windows locked down, and so on. But how about to get into a wireless router? What do you need to do that? Okay, there's several different types of technology, like WEP or WPA. Right now, I think they're cracking WPA. WEP's been cracked. It's really easy to crack. You guys can download a program, install it on your smartphone, and they will crack that type of level of security. What is it? How does it work? What are these wireless encryption programs about? Well, first of all, how does wireless technology work? Because not only do we have Wi-Fi, what else do we have? What other types of wireless technology have you guys used? I'm using it with this microphone here. What about this? Bluetooth. Right now, Bluetooth is not encrypted. It's over the airwaves. If I'm talking to Vanessa and I say, Vanessa, did you get my email? Did you guys hear that message? Did you guys answer or reply to that message? Why not? Because it was addressed to Vanessa. You chose not to respond to it, correct? So this is what I was telling Mariah when she's telling me about her hotspots. Right now we send a message to her little device asking, can I get permission? Because I'm following protocol. What if I don't send that message asking for permission? And I start acting like I'm part of that network. She doesn't know about that. She thinks she's safe because anytime anybody's connected to her, it mentions it. Doesn't have to be. Because these wireless signals are going everywhere. All you have to do is tune into it and say, I am that person, and I will open it up. Alright, so now we talk about encryption. Now the message is sent to you. Question. No, it doesn't have to show that, because that one person that's connected, I could clone their MAC address, their physical address. So you see one person, but as far as I'm concerned, what if you had an identical twin? I wouldn't know that today was the one twin, and then on Thursday was another twin, because they're identical, correct? So your other twin acts like you. They might have a different logical name, but they look physically like you. And I would have no idea. Even if we did a photo ID, the only way I would know is through a genetic or maybe in a fingerprint. Right? So that one device that says on your phone, the only way that phone knows it's connected is because it has a physical address. And when I know what that physical address is, I can copy it and pretend that I am that device. So then you only see one, but that information is going to be copied to both devices. And that's the way I would get around that. So now you're thinking you're safe. So let's talk about encryption. If it's encrypted, then all I see is a bunch of gargled letters. Now I don't know what that address is. Okay, if I don't know what that address is, then it's hard for me to pretend to be that address, correct? So how good is the encryption? What makes the encryption? We have this thing called cryptography. And in cryptography, we need a key, like a passphrase, that we use to create an algorithm to gargle up the message. Here's an example of a key. You take the alphabet, cut it in half, and you let the capital letter A be the capital letter N, and you work your way down. Or you let the capital letter A be the capital letter Z. Does this make sense, folks? So you have this alphabet, and you say, okay, A is now Z, and Z is A. B would be what? C would be? That's the key. And that's the algorithm. So if I want to spell cab, the way it would be spelled is X, Z, Y. And you look at that and you see it gargled up. Now that's a lame encryption method. But as far as what we would do in this classroom, that would be just fine if you're passing around little love notes. Or if you're texting to a friend. Eventually, somebody's going to figure it out. Because the more text that's being passed this way, there's going to be a pattern emerging. You're like, wait a minute. How about we do this? Like, for instance, numbers. Have you guys seen this before? Where have you seen that type of layout? Alright? So let's use the jump over method. A 9 is a 1, a 7 is a 3, a 2 is an 8, a 4 is a 6, and a 5 is a 0. Now we can get really elaborate with this because haven't we also seen this? And so maybe if I want to spell cab, maybe what I will do is say 2, 3, and then this is all on 2. It might say 2, 1. Oh, wait a minute, but I got to change this around. 8. And then let's do B. B is going to be 8, 2. Eight is this, but we got to hop over to 2. 3 is 1, 2, 3. So this tells me by pairing these up, this is a C. 8 and 1 tells me that this is an A. 8 and 2 tells me that this is a B. There's the word cab. A little bit more complex compared to this method, right? So the key gets evolved. This is why when you guys are shopping online, you see like that HTTPS, and it might say 256-bit encryption. What they're saying to you is they use 256 bits. So take 2 raised to 256. That's how many unique combinations they have for each letter. So if you have a 16-digit credit card number, it's going to look like it's a million numbers and letters. How do you know where the number begins and where it ends? Correct? This whole encryption stuff is all over, whether it's HTTPS, whether it's WEP, WPA, and so on and so forth. But the key, literally, is the key, the passphrase. How often do you guys change your passwords? How strong are your passwords? How many letters? How unique are your passwords? By the way, I mean letters, numbers, and symbols, right? Because you should probably do a variation. And how often do you change it with your wireless network? Because the key is staying the same. It's like the lottery number staying the same. And eventually, you're going to hit it, correct? There are 36 unique numbers per each place, right? What's the lottery? 6 numbers? Or 5 plus the Powerball? I don't know. So 5 places each from 0 to 36, correct? Plus the 6th place, I believe the Powerball goes up to like 45 or 50. You can pick any number from 0 to 50, which means it becomes a lot harder. The probability of catching or guessing the lottery, as you guys know it, is not in your favor. But if that number stayed the same, and you could have 1 billion tries, now, is it going to start becoming your favor? So what good is all this security stuff, which we'll get more into on Thursday's class, if you guys don't change your password every 2 days or every 2 weeks? Better than what you're changing it now. Let's take a survey. Anybody change theirs once a day? How about 2 days? Once every 2 days? 3 days? You guys should change your password if you change your underwear. How about once a week? And that becomes the technique we need to learn. You don't know the password. You make a system. The system is easy. It's a rule. The rule can be repeated, and each time generates a different outcome. And to each is their own, which is what makes it safe. Don't share your rules. I'm not sharing mine with you. However, I will give you an example of a rule. First thing is we need to establish that all your passwords must be unique. Second thing we need to agree on is that you should change your passwords often. Third thing, your password should be super long, correct? Fourth thing, your password should contain numbers, letters, and symbols. You good about that? Unique passwords for every site. Super long. Change often. Goofy looking. Nope. How do you manage all that? Is that a password? Could be. It meets one out of the conditions. It's pretty long, right? Counting the spaces, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That is super long. It's easy to remember too, right? It's the truth. I got capital letters and I have lowercase letters. Let's do some character substitution. How about I becomes the number 1? From now on, you guys associate the I with a particular letter or a number. I might leave L alone and I might put it right next to it because it's a capital letter. Or I might choose to make L the number 7. I might make the O a 0. Hell, I might even abbreviate love to be LUV or something like that. It's my own rules. V. Like I said, let's abbreviate this. Maybe I'll put a U here. Or I could leave it as a V. It doesn't matter with me because all I'm doing is just some character substitutions. this class could work, but we had to make it unique. This becomes my Gmail password. Why can't I put that in there? I could capitalize it all. I could go back to making it character substitution. Placing the I with a 1. Maybe the G with a 6. And I only have one symbol in there. I probably should have more symbols. So maybe I'll replace my M with a hash. I personally like to use symbols that are very, I shouldn't say this, but are very similar, like the A with an @ symbol maybe. Maybe a V with a caret symbol. I mean, after all, isn't that just upside down? And the caret's what, shift 6? So, let's see the rules with caret. Pretty long password, right? It's got numbers and letters and symbols. Uniqueness, because if I have a Gmail password and I have a Yahoo Mail password, whoops, I wouldn't do this. I would then say Yahoo. Now I gotta do the character substitution, so this becomes an @ symbol. These become zeros. You see the first part of my password's the same? But the last part is different. Whether this is my first or my last part, I will never tell you. These are my rules. Okay, now, I said you should be changing your passwords like you change your underwear. Maybe that's a little over-exaggeration. You should probably set up prioritization. My credit card companies, I only go on there once a month when I pay my bill, correct? After I get done paying my bill for my credit card company, I automatically change that password. Here's what's interesting about it. I pay it how often? Tell me about our monthly calendar. Do you see anything that repeats? There's going to be another January, I hope. So why don't you set your password up as being like the beginning, the month that you're in? Like I know I'm going to pay my bill for May, so maybe my password's going to be, for next time, because I just got done paying my April bill, 05, I love, I don't know, let me give you a card. Let's do capital 1. Got to be unique each time, correct? And May, I pay the bill, I change it, and I put a 6 in there. Now is it different every month? Would I recommend that you guys do it that way? Well, now that it's on YouTube, no. But maybe you pay on the same day. Maybe you pay, maybe you use the letters of the month. Maybe you'll get creative and say, let's use the Roman calendar or some other culture's calendar. You get the point here? You just made 4 rules. You remembered the rules, and you apply them to get different results. Here's a phrase. Something that nobody else knows, but you know, doesn't hurt. You might say it all the time. Don't worry about other people catching on with your phrase. I always say, you know what I'm talking about? Or something along those lines. So that might be my phrase. Change it around. Do character substitution to that phrase. Don't use the whole phrase. Use part of the phrase. After that, append the website to, or whatever you're doing. Like if this is your Wi-Fi password phrase, use Wi-Fi. Or use whatever it is to your phrase. That makes it longer. Last, create a period of change. Bills once a month. My bank, every week, I'm changing my bank password. Emails. I am changing a particular email every day. You need to be careful about this. I have multiple email accounts. I have a spam account. When I go shopping at the mall or wherever and they ask me for an email address and I can get 5% off, I'm like, sure. I will never check it, and it's going to cyber hell. So send it to nickandre@yahoo.com. I don't give a shit what's going on, because all of my bullshit, whether it's fake websites that require you to put an email in, or whatever, goes to that. Do I mix business with pleasure? No, not when it comes to emails. That's my spam email. I will use it only for spam stuff. Next level. I have an email for my financial stuff. Bank, credit cards. That's the email I change every day, and I only use it for that. So if I have to log into my credit card account, that's the one. Now, do I make variations of that one? Absolutely. And I use different companies. I might put all my Capital One credit card emails to a Yahoo email account. Same first part, but now it's at Yahoo, or at Gmail, or at Hotmail, or so on and so forth. Do I use the same passwords for each of those sites? No. Why am I that peculiar? Why do I have all these emails, and why do I classify certain activities with certain emails? Have you ever had your email hacked? Not that hard to do. Especially if you're browsing on an insecure site or an unencrypted channel. If they catch your email, folks, tell me, what is the process of retrieving a lost password? Facebook, you guys forget your password. Tell me, what is their process? So wait a minute. If I go onto your Facebook account, I know your username. How do I lock this password down? How do I lock the account down, even that you can't get into it? Just type in random bullshit passwords, right? After so many tries, what's Facebook going to do? Lock it off, and it's going to say, please enter your email. So now wait a minute. We become creatures of habit. How many people, when the first thing they do when they get up in the morning is follow a procedure, like take a shower, put on their underwear. And throughout this procedure, after you get yourself all dolled up, do you go into Facebook then? How many of you guys, when you first come into this class, be honest, you log in and you check your Facebook account or your email? So, if I was doing this on a lab computer that's not protected, doesn't require you guys to log in, but I know you have this class. I know when it meets, where it meets, and you guys, from the beginning of the semester, you've all sat in the same seat. You've made my job so much easier. See, I don't like calling them hackers. I like calling them social engineers. Because I can do it several ways. They make this little nice USB device. By the way, how does your keyboard and mouse plug into your computer? Through USB, right? So, if I make this dongle and have my USB keyboard plug into this, which, by the way, it's on the back of the computer, probably under a desk. So before you guys come into classes, any of you guys get down on your knees and check? Notice I said check for the password, not for extra credit. So does anybody get on their knees, look behind their computer to see if their keyboard is plugged into a foreign device? No. Now, we've learned about how your keyboard works, and every letter you guys typed in appears as a binary pattern, travels through this wire. So if it's plugged into a dongle, what do you think that dongle's going to do? It'll record every keystroke. That is to say, facebook.com, something you type in. Or maybe you click. Doesn't matter. Because you can plug your mouse into this dome. What's the next thing you do after you type in Facebook? On the box that says username. You type in your username. What is the next thing you type in? Something that might look gargled up like this, and then you click submit. Thank you so much for making my job easier. That's the easiest way to get somebody's username and password. Predictability. It doesn't matter how strong your password is and how often you change your password. If you guys are predictable, you make it easier for those other people. You might have a class with a lab, certain period. You guys sit in the same seat. Done. All right, what's the next stage? Now, I'm teaching this so you don't go and do this, but rather you learn from this. And I don't want to make you guys all paranoid. Do me a favor. Once in a while, change your damn seat. Make me feel like you learned something and you're a little bit safer and a little bit more conscientious about this stuff. Because we're talking about cyber crimes and how I could use your identity or your computer to commit the crime and walk away hands-free. What if I don't have luxury of getting into your house to slip this device? What's another way of doing it? What about trojans? I'm not talking the stuff that you have a good time with. How are we doing, Adam?
Why me, though?
The other one talking about kiddie porn. Okay. So, what are trojans when it comes to software? Something that you want, right? So it came back from this war between the Greeks and the Trojans. And the Trojans were very proud of their horses, right? And the Greeks were like, we're getting our ass kicked because we can't go through their fortress. They have this huge wall with a gate on it. So the Greeks got a little clever, and they built them this huge horse out of their boats. Right? Because they figured, hey, we lost a lot of people. We don't need all these boats. Let's tear it down. Build this beautiful horse in honor of getting our ass kicked. Maybe it was a trophy to worship the gods for safe journey back to Greece. But they didn't leave Greece, right? They took a few soldiers, smuggled them inside the cavity of this horse, and the Trojans felt, this is our statue, let's honor it. They had to tear down their gate, if you will. Horse got in, middle of the night, soldiers came out of the horse, they opened up their gate, and away they came in. It applies perfectly to software. Especially when you guys want to get illegal music, or movies, or whatever the case may be, there's got to be software that's going to do this for you, right? What is software? A list of instructions. It tells your computer what to do. Okay? So, you download a program that you want, I will embed another program that you don't want that might keep track of all your keystrokes. Now that you're connected to the internet, it'll mail me at a drop location, all the stuff that you've been typing in on your computer. Now with that, I can go to those websites and try it. This is why you should change your passwords frequently, right? Because one, this program has to upload it, this person has to go get it, process it, and then try it out. This is why after I get done doing my banking, I change the password right then and there. So that even if the person does get it, but now the question is, Nick, but you changed your password. If they have this program installed on your computer, wouldn't they also get the new change? Yeah. I don't change it with that computer. Very paranoid. Maybe I set all my illegal activities on another computer, maybe a virtual machine, and then I do all my other stuff on another computer. Computers are getting cheap. Maybe you might consider doing all your sensitive activities, banking and any transactions like that, on a computer that does just that. You're not allowed to download or install software. It has one purpose. So that when this activity does happen, you sort of mitigate, and that's the point. You can't eliminate security threats. You try to minimize that. So that's Trojans in a nutshell. What's another way of trying to get somebody's username and password? Now, we just said it earlier as I was alluding to it. I lock your password down, correct? You are expecting something from someone. If I lock your Facebook password account out, because I can do it from any computer, you go in there and you're like, oh, it's no big deal. I guess I forgot my password. Foolish me. So then you go to your email account. If it's the only email that you have, that's easier for me to guess. Now you're going to get an email you're expecting from Facebook, and you're expecting it to look a certain way, correct? And then you expect a link that you click on to reset the password. So sure, what's to stop me from making a website? Sending you an email with a link to this. By the way, what do we call this? Phishing. Because I guarantee you, I'm going to get at least one of you. Now, this is why we try to keep our passwords unique for everything. Because if you did get hooked into that scam, now it's only your Facebook that's compromised. Because I only did it because, be honest with you folks, let's take a survey. How many of you tend to use the same password more than once? You don't have to tell me what you use it for, but more than once. See, I know I'm going to get one of you guys. And in that password, you guys tend to use it for sensitive sites that could identify you, whether it's like your financial aid or your credit card or your bank. So if you use it on a social site, and then I lock that down because it's really easy to do, and then you follow this procedure, now I'm just going to go to those other sites that you use, and I'm in. By the way, a really good phishing site and scam would be, I'll let you change it, and I'll go change it on Facebook for you so that you think the change happened, right? It doesn't make sense to lead them to a web page that doesn't change the password for you. Otherwise, when you go back to Facebook to try this out, and it doesn't work, what are you going to think? Maybe I've been scammed, right? But if it does work, what are you not thinking? Something happened. So, how do we prevent scamming? By the way, we can't stop it. So how do we minimize our threats? How do you guys handle this? This is something you guys experience all the time. Will that handle it, though? An antivirus software, will that handle phishing? Typically, an antivirus software, just strictly that, not those universal tools, are scanning files that have malicious code in it that might cause harm or read things that you type in a keyboard. But this one, I'm not trying to read anything. I'm just asking you to give me this information. Like, for instance, it depends on how difficult you want to be when you get pulled over by a cop. You've heard stories, right? What's to stop me from painting my car blue, throwing some sirens on there, and dressing up like a police officer and pulling somebody over? You guys think I have the look? Let me get some donut stains on my outfit. No, I'm just kidding. How do you guys know when I pull you over that I'm a police officer? You want to see my badge? Is it that hard to? Have you ever seen a real police officer's badge? How would you know the difference between a fake one and a real one if you've never seen it? We're battling our heads with this academic policy about online classes and how we have to force the final in person, right? I've never seen these students before in my life. You know what our policy is? That they have to take the final in person. Make sure you bring a photo ID. It says who you are. I don't have a driver's license, Nick. I don't drive. I took a bus to get here. But I have this. Came out of my Kellogg's box this morning. All I had to do was lick my photo on it. It's not that hard to fake an ID. Maybe not to the point to get through, customs. But for an instructor? So you say who you say you are, but yet again, I still don't know because I haven't had you prick your thumb and then do a DNA scan. Because they don't have access to that information, let alone that'd be a little personal, right? So, my question to you guys would be, that's social engineering. Milking information from you and you giving it willingly. Being deceived into doing it. So my question back to you is, how do you prevent yourself looking like a fool? When you get those emails, when you get those phone calls, when you get somebody that bumps into you, how often are you guys more prone to call somebody to fix your computer? When you're in a pinch. Maybe it's a Geek Squad person. These can be really elaborate. It all depends on how much you're worth, right? You guys heard that one? What was it, last week? Was one of those evangelists that was targeted? I mean, talk about going all out. That was pretty impressive, the stuff that they were doing. Hacker. Yep. So tell me some strategies that you guys have tried to follow to help protect yourself the best possible. I mean, when you guys go into the city, you guys still keep your wallet in your back pocket? You guys carry a big purse to say Gucci on it or whatever? I mean, why do you wear slum clothing? I mean, I've come from a region of Philadelphia, so anytime I come down to Philly, I'm wearing shitty clothing, and literally, it smells awful, it's got holes in it, and it's like, okay. I mean, you get some nasty stares when you go into a nice restaurant, but I'm covering my back end. And I don't put my wallet in there, I put my cash in my shoe. It's always funny to go check out. Give me a second, let me get my credit card out. Maybe I'm paranoid. Haven't had my identity stolen yet. Now somebody on YouTube can try to find it. I'm sure you guys can do it. But physically, when I go in the city, I haven't worried about being mugged. And I do leave some money in my pockets so that I am mugged. I can say, here, have $50, leave me alone. Not, don't tell me you're poor. Don't tell me you don't have any money. Then they're going to go through my shoes. And I don't want that to happen. So I give them a couple of bucks and throw them off. Maybe that's what we can do when it comes to our online protection. Maybe we can create some passwords. Give them some leeway to think that they have something, and then compartmentalize other things. Maybe you don't care about having a Facebook account. Maybe you have multiple Facebook accounts. Maybe you have a rogue Facebook account, like I have a spam email. This is your opportunity to share with the class what's going on. Because, folks, this is going to concern you because it's never going to go away. It's only going to get harder, and hence you got to escalate with it. Criminals are becoming smarter. Our next warfare isn't going to be a bloody shoot-'em-up kind of deal. There is one raging right now, and guess what? Not between countries as much as between corporations. I guess this one's between a corporation and a country. China and Google are having an all-out cyber attack. The one with the biggest brain is the one that's going to win. Should you be worried that China and Google are waging cyber wars? Adam's shaking his head yes. Why? Why should you be worried that China and Google are waging an all-out battle? Why should that matter? So China doesn't give a shit about copyright laws. You get about that? Patents, anything like that. So why should that matter? Why is China trying to attack Google and if not our infrastructure? What does Google have exposed to that China wants to get? So you got this online privacy, right, that's stored in Google's databases, so maybe Google shouldn't be allowed to keep track of this stuff. But more importantly, besides the information, what does Google have that's within this country, within this network, that China wants to get? And it's not only Google, it's your smartphones. In fact, maybe we should tell Apple, stop making your products over in China. HP, bring your damn printers back in this country. Why? Our devices are connected together. Our devices are used to share information, correct? Let's look at this, though, for a second. I print something out, my credit card statement, my receipts. There's some personal information that goes to this printer. Maybe this printer has a storage device that I don't know about. This happens in copier machines. And they sell these hard drives in these old refurbished copier machines, and you can get them. And think about your taxes. Oh, let me make a copy of this. 35 pages. And they have all that information exposed to them. It's stored on this hard drive, on this copier or on this printer. Let's have access to it. So Google and China, maybe China's battling with Google because Google has a lot of servers, a lot of processing power, and it's within this country. If they can embed a virus into Google's algorithm, into all their software, and all the Americans that use it, China can get to know us, where we are, what we do. That's one level. What about our hardware? Our devices that we buy. Remember, we need software to tell the hardware what to do. So, we export. China hires a bunch of kids. We have no idea who's working for these companies, what their backgrounds are, whether they are a Chinese government spy, a disgruntled employee, or a hacker that's getting paid millions of dollars, and they upload this software, this little patch, that every packet that comes through this switch, or this printer, or that phone, gets routed somewhere else. This is like that Superman thing, right? 1/10 of a penny. Would you guys notice, for every transaction that you made, somebody stole 1/10 of a penny from you? If you make 100 transactions, what's that, $1? If you do, you made that. But guess what? Everybody's using that ATM that was built in China, that has the same software. Now, if 1 million people use that same ATM and make 100 transactions, I have $1 million that goes unnoticed. Isn't that startling? Shit, I'm thinking, let's write the software. Let's start making this country third world so we can develop these hardware products. Sure, pay me $1 an hour. I'm happy to work for $1 an hour because I know in a month I'm going to be a millionaire. Doesn't that frighten you? Can you guys tell me what is not controlled in this country by some form of computing device? Whether it's connected to the internet or not. Can you tell me where you can get a job where you'll never have to use computers? Can you tell me what energy company, what telephone company doesn't use computers? Whether it's keep track of billing, keep track of security, those little sign-in cards, the biometrics, or whatever the case may be. And those devices that are managing these companies, can you tell me, where do you think those devices are made? I say by America, not only to help our economy out, but to make it a safer country. It might not seem much to you, but we're losing jobs because of this. We get these patents. Company in here goes bankrupt because no longer can they sell this camera because China has it and selling it for a lot less. And what do you guys do when you're going shopping? We buy the cheapest product. We don't care about where it came from. We don't care about the ethical dilemmas that it caused. We don't care about it cost Billy's dad his job. There's a whole lot of things going on that we tend not to think about because it doesn't affect us personally, for one. And second, it seems so minute. What kind of harm can it do? Would you have a problem if somebody stole 1/10 of a penny from you? It'll take you more time worrying about that 1/10 of a penny than to say, what you did. What makes cracking passwords, breaking down algorithms possible? And what determines the speed in which that happens? We learned about this back at the beginning of the semester. What affects performance, folks? Memory, what else? Think about the three parts of the IPO, right? CPU, memory, storage. We all good with that? If we can connect them all together via this internet, we can have every computer in this country or every computing device donate clock speed, processing power. An army of one, you're not scared about. If it was you guys versus me, who should be shipping their pants? I saw that Kmart commercial. I should be worried because it's one of me versus many of you. Right? If you're the US government and there are literally billions of computing devices attacking their databases, should they be worried? We call this grid computing. Anybody have a PlayStation 3? You notice when you first booted it up and you hooked it up to a network, did something come up asking you to be generous with your CPU? Something about trying to find a fight for cancer, a cure for cancer? Not trying to find a fight, but a cure for cancer. I don't know if you read the end user license agreement, but if you put a check in there, it would have asked you if you'd like to have donated some of your CPU power to this. And what it would do is, like in the middle of the night, it'll turn your PlayStation 3 automatically on. And all these PlayStation 3s all over this country would go to like the American Cancer Society and grab a chunk of data and process it together. Because think about the human body. What makes us all unique? Our DNA, right? What's it, 48 chromosomes or 46 chromosomes? 46 chromosomes? That gives us all the different possibilities. Folks, there's literally trillions upon trillions upon trillions of unique combinations that the DNA can make. So we're trying to crack the human code with these PlayStation 3 devices. Why? So we can make the human DNA stronger to be immune to cancer. And we feel that if we can all pitch in a few clock cycles, it'll make us that much closer to finding a cure. There's technology used in good and bad as always. The same technology that's implemented to find a cure for cancer is the same technology that could be used to take over a country. We will go quietly in the night with this technology. One day we will wake up wondering who we are, what allegiance we will swear to, because it's not the dollar anymore. And it's not that it happened with brute force. It happened slowly over time. We lose our jobs. We lose our technology. We lose our intelligence. We start to question. You guys, when you get a job, are competing on a global platform. I post my videos on YouTube for the world to see. Am I losing a possibility of potential students in the future? Absolutely. How you guys behave in this new world, completely, entirely up to you, and how you survive will depend on your intelligence. How trickery you can become. I put my wallet or my cash in my shoes when I go to the cities to protect myself. How you guys interact with each other online might follow a similar procedure. How do you find drugs or prostitutes on Craigslist? Vanessa's like, you can find prostitutes and drugs on... Tell me how! Let's talk about that! Alright, I'll talk to you guys on Thursday. We'll get into PowerPoint. This is basically Thursday's class in security and ethics, if you will. We'll get into ethics later. You guys take care. Like I said, I'll see you on Thursday.